Can you hear me? Okay. So I think there's a benefit for both sides. I mean, for some people, they can read here, and for Japanese, they can read too, because I think it's like a more I try to like a little bit push people learn more things by not through some excuses. So I put some Japanese on here. Okay, so today's outline I put on there's a 12 each topics that we're going to go through, and the first one will be pathways and applications of biomass waste to bioenergy and biochemicals. And I'm going to introduce the next is what is gasification, and why we focus on use gasification to apply to biomass, especially in the biomass and wastes. And then we go to the advanced gasification, because actually gasification developed during the World War II. The World War II, because the German is losing the war and they don't have gasoline or diesel to power their tank or motorcycle or other vehicles. So they develop the gasification process and use they call the future truck. That's a name process. Those two chemists, they developed a way use the catalyst and use the catalyst to transfer the gasification will produce the syngas, and to transfer the syngas to the diesel or gasoline or other chemicals. So actually, the gasification technology has to be developed more than 100 years. But there's something new recently in the past 10 or 20 years, and they call the dual fluid aspect gasifier. So I will introduce this one because it is more or less like a revolution for the gasification technologies. And then we're going to go to the tar, because the tar is one of the big issues for the real application when you're doing in the industrial. And then how the people who develop some process to remove it. And then because we're in Taiwan, so I give some cases what happened, how we use biomass and waste to transfer them to the energy in Taiwan, and give you summaries. And the last one is just like I will give you about like 3 cases. There's a real 3 cases. They are economical sustainability. They are running. They are really plant running by the gasification technology in the world now. Okay, so this is very complicated pathways and applications, because the biomass and waste is the composition and the variety and the characteristics are varied very much comparing with coal. And a lot of people, they think they are wrong. I can tell you, I'm facing a lot of high-ranked people. They are really wrong, because they think since we can use the coal to do the gasification to power the generation, why not just use the same equipment to use biomass and wastes? They think they are the same thing. Actually, they are completely different, and there are a lot of problems. So a lot of people that develop a lot of process pathways to transfer from the biomass to the final chemicals or gas, or you can say that they are what do you call the fuels. For example, like alkanes, alcohols. Alcohols, actually, they can replace the gasoline. You can put in in Taiwan, 95 or 92, and there's 8 or 7 gasoline. Actually, they use the 5% of the alcohols already in Taiwan, and for the demonstration. And for the BTX, and BTX means the benzene, toluene, and xylene, they are part of the chemicals. They are not friendly, but we need them a lot. For example, like every day for the buses, for anything powered by the gasoline or diesel. Because actually gasoline and diesel are very complicated. They are formulas. So you want to put a lot of things to like increase their anti noxious. For example, when you ignite the gasoline, you will generate the shock, the pulse. And when you try to control them, and you need those like additive, we call the additives. So actually, BTX is one of the things. There's a very important chemicals. Even they are not friendly to the environment, but now we try to use it from the environment to recycle the waste to go back to use again. So I think it is a more or less like wise choices. Okay, and then there's other things is also about these alkenes. So basically, the pathway is very complicated, but basically you can see this is the feedstock, and those are the final product. And we got a lot of pathways or technology or platforms, whatever you call it, and we can transfer from those wastes and biomass to those chemicals and fuels. And here you can see basically the category will divide by two, by the from the biomass and waste to the vegetable oil and algae to the lignocellulose and waste, because those are oil-based things. So the process will either way will be more easier to do the transformation. Which transformation means like you have a transesterification, you esterified then. And when you esterified then, you can apply as the diesel. Even it's not like the kind of regular diesel you can use for heavy diesel things, for like boat or like power generation things, for not for vehicles. Vehicles, you need to put more other things for that those diesel to run more smoothly. But for some diesel powered generator or some boats, they can use those biodiesel directly. So it's not difficult. Okay. And the rest of the categories you can see here, I category then, I separate as the lignocellulose and waste. Lignocellulose is basically what you can see, the trees, the leaves, and the plants. They are all composed by the lignocellulose. And a lot of wastes, they are carbohydrates. For example, like plastics and some organic things, they are all category into the lignocellulose and the waste. And in this category, you have basically you can use two pathway to do the process to get whatever you want. The first is liquefy. Your liquefaction, you get some liquefied things like also the BDX and alkenes, or you do the gasification. And so the people will ask mostly if I going here, most of them will ask us, so how you choose which way you go through, what kind of waste or what kind of biomass you choose gasification, and what kind you will choose the other one, the liquefaction. Basically, it all depends on how much money you have. Liquefaction process, I would not say is cheaper, much cheaper, but the complication is more complicated. You have more complication products, but the process is more simplified, and operation temperature is lower. So liquefaction is I will say it's a easier way, or it's very picky. Picky means mostly I would say so. So I want one condition, one criteria is if you have a budget limited and you have most biomass, not biomass, I would say the waste is component is plastics, especially plastics. Then you go to the liquefaction. And then the other things you should go to gasification. And I will tell you why gasification will be the better choices in this condition. Okay, So the advantage of the gasification comparing with incineration. So incineration is basically just the now what's the incinerator they do. They take all the wastes from everybody from the civilization, the civil, and from the people, the families, and they take those garbages and they go to the incinerator and they burn it. They have some power generation, but the power generation efficiency around like 14 to 17, 14 to 17. So actually, they are not very good process, but it's easy. And the hard part actually is the gas cleaning part. To burn is not hard, but to keep the after burn the flue gas cleaning is the hard issues. And comparing with incinerator, gasification have some advantage. So here's I indicate the six things I think there's try to convince the probably few of you will be convinced and gasification is one of the good choices. It's more efficient conversion of the biomass into clean combustionable gas, which means if you use the gasification, you can generate some flue gas, and the flue gas can use as like a natural gas substitute. We call the SNG, substitute natural gas. That's one way. So you can gasify and to generate the methane, or it all depends on how you gasification process. Because gasification, you can focus what kind of your target chemical it is. So I give you a very quick case. If you have very short gasification time and the major component of in the flue gas, in the syngas, we call the syngas after your gasification, the product called syngas. Methane will have around like a 12% in the composition if you have very quick gasification. Quick means less than 1 second. Okay, so that's a very specific. So because we talk about science, so I think we should talk about the when you use a fast or low, high or low. What is high or low? What is the advantage? Why it is good? It's very foggy for me. So more or less times I like numbers can represent accurate. What is the advantage of them? Okay, so there's one case is if you target to generate the methane to do the substitute natural gas, and then the gasification design, you have to design the gasification process very short, and then you can get mostly is methane. And other things, if you want to get more syngas, actually the syngas is majorly component by the carbon monoxide and hydrogen, and then you can have a slower gasification time, so it's around like 2 seconds or 3 seconds, around that kind of range. Okay, the small amount of impurity left in the gas stream can be more easily removed than the scrubber flue gas stream. So what does this means? Do you understand the English are right? Probably I check it for the grammar online, and for other people's the grammar I can sure is correct, but I doubt the people understand what this means. Okay, basically based on the regulation, if you go into the incinerator, the oxygen content, I remember you have normally it depends on the what kind of combustion system it is. So you have to adjust the flue gas contain the toxic gas component in what concentration it is. So they use oxygen percentage to do the adjustment. For example, for the rotary king, rotary king is like a cylinder and it's rotating. And when the rotating and you put the things in and you heat it up, you use a burner and you heat it up, you burn it just like that. So this is most incinerator they do. So basically the regulation, if there's a gas rotary king is you have used like a 12% of oxygen content to do the adjustment and to see, for example, if you detect the oxygen now is 6, then you have to go to the 12 and to see the what's actually the ppm, for example, like a hydrogen sulfide. So this is what the incineration they do. So I can tell you why I talk about this so long, because incineration you need more air and oxygens is over air, over oxygen to burn things. Make sure everything be burned. So it's over air ratio. We call the ER ratio. And when you're doing the gasification, because we try to do the gasification at ER ratio around like 3 to 4, which means you have 10 carbon. If you want complete combustion, burn it, you need 3, you need 10, another 10 oxygens to do it. And now for the gasification, you put 3 in there and do the process. For the incinerator, you have 10 carbons, you put 16 or 12 oxygens in there. So airflow will be completely different. Probably you have no idea why I point out the differences of this. So okay, one is 10 plus 3, so it's 13. The other one is 10 plus 12, that's 22. So that's almost double. So double means if you have equipment and the diameter of your pipeline is around like, okay, 6 inches or 12 inches. If you design for gasification, 12 inch probably is enough. And now the flue gas amount is twice. So all the pipeline, you have double it. You know how much it costs? Not only the power pipeline, the combustion, the volume for the combustion, after the secondary combustion chamber, things, everything have to enlarge. So it's costly. And more, even more, those things is operate under very high temperature. So those metal things or isothermal materials are very, very expensive. So you can see actually advantage for the gasification. Actually, they got very good advantage because you can small down, you can scale down the size of your equipment. Okay, and the third one is electric power opportunity in engine and generators and co-firing existing facilities. So you generated the syngas, like I say, your gasification. So what you can do the syngas, you can as like use as like the like a S engine, like natural gas, and you can power like the biogas, like a biogas. You know what is biogas? It's like fermentation. After fermentation, you have biogas. So you can mix with the biogas, and you can use some biogas power generator, something like you can mix them with other fuels, and without changing the main equipment. So that's one thing important. So imagine now you are in the industrial, you have one equipment already running perfectly. And now the government asks you to lower the emission or increase the biomass application or the waste implications. What you can do, you tear it down and build another plant and use the biomass and waste. No, never. No one do that. It's costly and it's too stupid. So basically, you use if you have the sound gasification set up, and you just pipe in the syngas into the regular combustion chamber, and you burn it, and the story ends. So this is one of the choices the people they do now. And the few people they doing the mixing is the co-firing. Co-firing means you mix the sound biomass and with the coal, and you pulverize them and go to into the PC uh, PC power generator power plant, and you just substitute some coal by the biomass. That's one way. So you can basically that's the most cheap way. You replace some fuels and the biomass, and you change nothing. You just adjust some parameters, the setups, and you monitor the boils temperature and the boil. You monitor the feedings speed. But actually, there's a lot of follow-up things. Actually, it's not that kind of easy or simple. Even the capital cost, the capital cost, the first investment we call the capital cost is cheap, but the following up operating costs like clean up and operating, probably you have to shut down for a few months, every few months, not like the old times. Your maintenance is 1 year, one time. So there's a cost of another issues. So actually, it's not that kind of easy. Even we call it 100 years technologies. Okay, and it has the ability to retrofit current equipment to displace fossil fuel usage. Of course, the main target for this cases, I think, is we try to use less fossil fuels because it's not good for our plant, and it's happening. And I really tell the truth. I don't believe the bullshit from the Trump, and he doesn't believe the world global things and says it's just a scandal things. And personally, because I stay in the United States for like 7 or 8 years, and try and I'm quite lucky, and I was there, and Obama was elected the first the black president. Is quite revolution of the United States in the history. And I'm lucky I was not there. There's another revolution happened when Trump won the president election when I was not there. I was lucky. Okay, so the fiscal feasibility. So fiscal feasibility is comparing with liquefaction. Like I mentioned, there's two pathways. You can use a liquefaction or use a gasification. And gasification has more advantage for the feedstock feasibility. Feasibility is very important because wastes and feedstock, the biomass, like I said, the character is you can define by the heating value, you can define by the water content percentage, you can define by the carbon component percentage, you can define by the VOC component percentage. They are all different, and the coal are stable. So the most PC power plant, they can run so well because the feedstock is so stable, so they can run the system very stable. And for biomass, because biomass are limited, so one day you import the biomass, for example, like from Indonesia, and the other day you import from Malaysia. And I can tell you, even they come from the same species, but the characteristic will completely different. And you have to adjust the equipment to adapt the new feedstock. So that's the difficulty. And there's another ways like there's a byproduct biochar. When you do the gasification, it all depends on the condition. You can generate biochar and generate the syngas in the same time. And the biochar for Japan, especially for Japan now, is legal. They can use as a fertilizer, as the secondary uses. They can use as a fertilizer. So they spray back to the field and to neutralize the earth, the soil, and to plant the new things. That's legal in Japan, but not in Taiwan. So there's another setback for Taiwan. Okay, so there's another thing I try to perceive you why the gasification is one thing, even is old technology, but you can see the growing predict from the 1970. I think World War II is 1947, 47, 49, and it's 2 or 3 years. And the 1970s is the revolution of the industrial and start that time, and we have some gasification things. And you can see the operating is increasing and the playing trend is increasing too. And they are by the megawatts. The unit here is megawatts. Megawatts means it's like more or less you use energy to represent how much energy we can gain from those biomass and waste back. If we can gain more, probably we can survive in the future. Okay, that's just my point. And what is the gasification? The process, it looks like very simple, it's straightforward, but the next the equation, you can be stunning and shocked. It's not that kind of easy. Okay, the start from there's a pour process. You heat it up in the drying, so we remove the water and you have a pyrolysis. Actually, pyrolysis, if you stop the pyrolysis, you get a liquefied product. And if you not stop at this time, you keep heating up the temperature, you get something oxidation. So oxidation will generate the power and generate the heat. The heat will self provide the energy to do the gasification. And finally, you have the gasification, the final product. You have carbon monoxide, you have a carbon two oxides, and hydrogen gas and methane, and the ethanol things. You have two carbon component, and you have tar and chars. So the gasification have byproduct by those two main products. Char is easy, but the tar is one pan headache. Okay. So this is equations. Partial, then they are release energy, then partial, then they are absorption energies. So they are very complicated. So you can see if you react with the oxygen, so you release, most time you release, it's exothermal reactions. So you can generate carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide, and hydrogen gas, and the hydrogen gas or water things. And if it's endothermal chemical reactions, like water gas reactions, you get the carbon monoxide and hydrogens, and also those things. So every reaction are competing in the same time and happening in the same time. You don't know which one is the main reaction. You don't know which one will be the main product, and it's very hard to control it. Why? Because even you control the temperature, the feedstock still the main controller. The main stock, they have a different VOC component. You know what is VOC? Do you know what is VOC? Vaporized organic composition. For example, like if you go to the sun sword and you filming something, or the sword, especially the sword, organic things, I think where you can smell it. For some, if you go some industrial area field, you smell something and you can feel it's not natural things, and we call it VOC. It's like a more easy vaporized organic component, and VOC composition different, and it will change the kinetic equation of the equations. So different different biomass have a different VOC component. So with different VOC, you have a different kinetic. So you have a different kinetics, you have different equation competition. So you don't know which one will be the major reaction happening in your process. So it's very hard to do the simulation. So more or less, you have to do the experimental to prove it, and use the proof data to reversely put back to the simulation, and use the simulation to calculation to find out which one is the main reaction. Okay. So there's some parameters and index. I hope you can know. If you can tell him other people say, oh, gasification. Oh, I took a class and they talk about the gasification before. And then they will ask you, what's this gasification? Okay. So gasification is basically on those indexes. The first thing is biomass characterization. So you can have a carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur. And for those, then they have energies. So basically, when you do the classification, you will do the elemental analysis. So you will know the ratio of those elements. And also there's some other H's and fixed carbon. So volatile things are comparative performance comparing with a fixed carbon. Fixed carbon are very, very hard to be combust. You have to burn them at a very high temperature and a longer time. But the VOC, like volatile materials, is easier and smaller, shorter reaction time. And the heating value depend. I use here is HHV. So next time if you see the HHV represent the higher heating value, so there's a low heating value. So low and high definitions all depends on the do you put the water phase transformation energy in there or not? Because you know water from the liquid phase to the gas phase, there's a phase transformation heating heating energies, entropies. So so mostly if you talk about the HHV, you will read more higher readings, but you adjust to the low LHV, you have a lower numbers, but actually they are the same thing. And HHV normally will represent how good of the syngas it is. The higher HHV, the higher energy you can get, because you can read the unit here is megajoule per kilogram. So which means per kilogram of the gas, the syngas, is how much energy you can gain. The higher, the better. Okay, the operating parameters. So there's a carbon to hydrogen ratio in the input string. So there's a CH ratio, temperature and pressure, and the ER ratio. So why I have a ER ratio in the very, very beginning time. I told you like ER ratio for us normally it's like 0.3 to 0.4 per gasification. And if you go to the incinerator, you go to the 1.7, 1.2 or 1.6. This is normally what you do. So this is the ER ratio. And here I introduce another ratio is the steam ratio. So there's a carbon and hydrogen ratio. Why I introduce this one later, I will show you why. Because we have a new design we call the dual fluidized better gasification. So you will learn that later. So there's also steam to the biomass ratio. There's another thing to define in the biomass loading and biomass reactor volume and gas fire design. So there's a three things. You look like three things, but it's very difficult to design the gas fire equipment. Okay, so this is the basically how you calculate the ER and the SB ratio. The ER ratio and SB ratio is basically the how much how much oxygen you need to complete burn the biomass, and you divide by the totally biomass. And for the SB is like the biomass is how much you need to burn. We call burn. Actually, it's not actually burn. It's like gasification, the steam and the dry biomass ratio. Okay, we talk about a lot. I tell you the gasification the process, the full process, there's the equations. So what is the gasification? This is the gasification. So this is how simple it is. Just this is gasification. This is gasification. So you have a stew. You put something. There's organic things. You have the carbon. You have a hydrogen. You're gonna have a carbohydrate things and put in here. and you put heat here, and slowly the carbon hydrate will going down because they generate the not generate. I mean the transfer from the solid to the gas, and the gas going up and generate the gas, and it's slowly going down by the feedstock. So this is gasification. It's simple, right? It's not difficult, but actually no. It's gasification. This is just ideas. Tell you what is gasification, but the whole process, like I tell you, is so difficult. Okay. I show you the in the beginning. There's an industry already. A lot of people they use gasification to do the industrial applications, and actually, uh, Chevron, Texaco, and GE. Have you guys ever heard those companies? Big companies, right? They do the gasification too, and but they use fossil fuels. And why they use fossil fuels? And because those kind is called the engine bed gasifier. Engine bed gasifier means that you use either mostly is use liquefy. You powderize your coal, and you put some water in there, so you make a slurry. You make a slurry and use a pump and pump into the reactor, like spraying. And you spray into the reactor and you burn it completely. So that's an entry bed. And entry bed has many advantages. They are very good, very high efficiency. That's one thing, very high efficiency. Second things, they can do high pressure reaction. So why they can do high pressure reaction? Why this is so important? Because the future trop reaction is under high pressure reaction. So if you have something pressurized in the beginning, and you can go either do the power generation, or you can do the chemical synthesis. And coal is cheap. So why not? And the efficiency is good. So they industrialized. But the limited here is they only use coal. The biomass cannot fit in this kind of system, even it is gasification. And the advantage for, like I say, the future trough, they need two criteria. One thing is temperature, and second thing is pressure. So if you want to pressurize the gas, normally you need it to cool down, and use a compressor to pressurize it and heat it up again. So you got a lot of energy losses. For example, the combustion chamber, the temperature is go around like 1,000 to the 1,200 Celsius. If you cool down to the scrubber, like 65, you can calculate the energy losses. It's is impossible to do like this way. So entrance bed gasifier is one unique design. The design can let you have a high temperature and clean syngas, and high pressure syngas in the same time. But the feedstock is only use coal. Okay, and those guys, actually, I don't like. I can tell you the truth. I don't like those guys because they control the oil price, and either way or not, and they make a lot of money. Even from old time, still now they make a lot of money. Even they said the client they lose money, but I don't believe that. Okay, so they use these ones to already industrialize, and so this is the main industrial gasification application now in the world. Okay, so you have syngases. This is the final product from the gasification, and you can see the branches here. You can go to any chemicals to replace fossil fuel. Acetic acid, wax, acetylene nitride, aceleric acid. This is for plastics. So you can make everything green. you recycle the waste, you recycle the biomass, and turn into syngas. And by the process, you can have those things to replace the green things. But the problem is they are too expensive. The process is too expensive. So if you can develop something easy, straightforward, and recycle, because if you recycle things, people pay you money. They are wastes. If I have garbage, I have paid money to the Taipei City to pay. Actually, I threw the garbage. I have to pay them to recycle my garbage. I think you have buy the special bag. Actually, the bag is one thing you pay for your garbage. So there's money. You probably think, oh, it's just probably like 100 things for me for 1 month or things or week things. But there's 4 million people who live in the Taipei city, and you know how much money it is for every month. So that's all go to the incinerator to maintain or to help them to elect the president. So that's just a joke. Anyway, they print the money. So there's if you can recycle those things by gain the money, and then either way you can have products. It's a win-win situation. You get the money and you get the product, you sell it, and you get a double money from it. If you can get very economic process. And you can see here for the most application for the gasification, still focus on the chemicals, because chemical has high values. And the energy now in Taiwan, even now in Taiwan, tell you the truth, we are really energy insufficient. We are really energy insufficient. 99% of the energy of Taiwan is import. And they try to, from scientific side, this is one of my opinion. Either you can buy it or not. This is only my opinion. They try to use natural gas go to 50%. 50%. They have the policies 50%, 30%, and 20%. 50% natural gas, 30% of the coal, and 20% of the bioenergy. That's the policy. And natural gas normally for our reception station only can sustain for 2 weeks, because natural gas, when you transport by the boat have to compress to the negative 149 Celsius. That's a low temperature and high pressure and limited volume. It's very hard to transport the natural gas. So the same way to storage then. And because the government think burning the natural gas is the most cleaning way, so they put 50% in a goal to persuade everyone in the Taiwan to use the natural gas. But 2 weeks. If you have a war, I think nobody believe like I am. We are having a war actually now between China and America, and we are in between like we are chest, and we are chest belong to the United States or China. I don't know now. Before we were chest of the United States. That's true, and like a leverage or things. And if they block the import, the natural gas import into the Taiwan, and 2 weeks without army, without any invasion, Taiwan will survive because we don't have power. You know, in this year, in August 15, remember the breakout? We have a power outage in August 15. Bayou, we call the Bayou outage, because the administration of the economic, the chief resigned because of they claim we have sufficient energy supply, and we have huge energy breakage outage. So he resigned. So this is all politician things. So this is my opinion. Natural gas, I didn't say it's not good, but the ratio, I don't believe the ratio is correct. Coal is dirty. That's what the European people thinks. Coal equal dirty. Coal dirty. But it all depends on what kind of equipment. From the industrial way, it all depends on what equipment you use. You use SCR, you have a selected catalyst reaction, you remove the SOx, you have FGD, you remove SOx, you remove the NOx, you remove the dust. You have EP, you remove the PN 2.5. You push those people to do those things. That's the correct way, and you use the coal. That's one thing to supply the stable energy. So one company, I don't know for a few people, how long you have stayed in a Taiwan. Probably you heard a company called TSMC. Have you ever called this company? I was interviewed in this company before. I'm sharing some information for you. Very funny. There's a three step. You meet with the HR people, and then you meet with uh, the team leader. They are going to hire people, and if the team leader they think they want you, you go back to the HR again. So the first HR will talk with me. The opening HR says, "Do you know TSMC? How much TSMC ratio in the GDP of Taiwan?" That's the first thing he popped the question, asked me. It's a big GDP percentage ratio. Way too high for me. I mean, it's one company can control the country. I can tell you. Okay, so go back to why I put it this way. TSMC is a big company, and they are not playing. They already started to build their power plant because their factory is running 24 hours. They cannot rely on the government the power supply. That's the truth. I can tell you. You can ask any TSMC, are you going to build the power plant? Excellent. That definitely they will tell you, yeah, we are going to build our power plant because they don't trust the government, and because the failure of the 1 hour for 1 hour power outage. Do you know how many lost? Billion of million. That's not nothing they can bear. So they are going to build their power. So anyway, that's one thing I share with you. Natural gas is good, but I think the ratio is really too high. Okay, so the feedstock ratio here, you can see majorly still coal. Like I say, Tesco, Chevron, GE, the engine bed, they use coal as a feedstock. The mainstream, of course, the coal have high dense heating value, high density energies, so it's easier to use and it's cheap compared with those biomass, because biomass you have the harvest and you have buy by other people and they cannot come steadily, so it's not easy to control. So of course the coal is here, the highest one, and biomass and waste is here, almost nothing. So this is one thing we have to improve in the for the better, good or big pictures that all for the those big guys always says those things, and for the good pictures, for good things, something like that. We need to increase the biomass and waste usage in the gasification or other applications. Okay, so I'm going to introduce. I think I have 10 or 15 minutes left before the break. So I will go to the biomass and waste gasification very quickly. So there's from the engine bed gasification, there's a four. I should say three major things. Sorry, I fixed that. Two major things. Two major design gasifier here. A and B are fixed bed, and C and D are fluidized bed. So there are two categories majorly. And how it's very complicated. Which kind of design you use for your feedstock is very complicated. If you have woody things, you have big chunk things, you go to the fixed bed. And if you have irregular things and very complicated composition things, you go to the fluidized bed. That's one index you choose. You how you pick the design, the gasifier. And the other thing is also the capacity. The fuel capacity you can hear from the downdrift, updrift, and bubbling fluidized, we call the BFB, and circling fluidized bed, that we call the CFB, and pressurized fluidized bed. This is fluidized bed, but it's pressurized. So you can see the scale for the fixed bed. You can only go to the small scale. When I was in Switzerland and I visited one factory, they operate already, and they for years, like 15 years, they use a fixing pop, this downstrip design, and they use wood chips. And the scale for one gets fired, I think I remember one is around like a 7 megawatt. I think that's a maxima for one fixed bed design. So if you're larger than that, then you don't use those kind of design in the industrial. So they have a parallel then. They have like 8 or 6, 7 megawatts reactors and 2 power generations. So they generate a syngas, and when you shut down for one side, you can replace, just provide for one power generator and 4 reactor running. They can do and the maintenance for the other half side. So they can operate it one time or in the same time. So this is the design. And if you go to large scale, which means large scale, and in one reactor, you go to the fluidized bed design. So this is a fixed gasifier design. It's the same thing like process I just represent in the previous size. Drying, pyrolysis, and partial oxidation and the reduction, and you produce the ashes. And the downstreams means the air is going from this way, and it's going the same way as the feedstock. And the upstream is the air is going from this way, but the feedstock is going from down. So it's counter or encounter ways or in the same direction. Encounter direction or same directions. Okay, so I'm going to do probably just 5 minutes. If I just tell you the defluidized bed gasifier. Okay, so we have fixed type gasifier, and we have fluidized gasifier, and they already last for like in the past for the 100 years. And in the past, almost 20 or 25 years, and people start to design, they call the defluidized base gasifier. And those kind of defluidized base gasifier, they combine the BFB and CFB, and they separate the process, because in the previously, it's very difficult to control process. Because, for example, like the feedstock is going down and going down and going down and going down and going down. How you control the going down speed? No, it's hard. normally there's just rotating things here to rotating here to make the feedstock come down. When you're rolling faster, it comes down faster, but there's limited. So it's very, very difficult to control the whole process timing. So between if I want pyrolysis longer time, or I want the partial oxidation longer time, or stay in the reduction longer time, it's impossible for the fixed bed. You cannot control it. In the most fluidized bed too, but for dual fluidized bed, they separate into the BFB and the CFB. And the BFB, they use gasification, so they do the gasification in the BFB and do the combustion in the CFB. So they separate the process, the reaction they separate. So the reaction temperature are separate too. Here the gasification probably you just control around like 700, and the combustion you control around like 1,000 or 900 or 950, between the 900 or to 1,000. So in this way, you can do better control for the efficiency. Okay, so I think the last slide, and then we're going to have a break. So here's direct and indirect. Direct is just like normally I just indicate the fluidized bed, and fluidized bed you have BFB and CFB, and BFB and CFB basically this depends on the UNF, the air circulation. There's a very complicated. You have to design the bed, and you have to design the air flow rate, and to use different size of the sand and control the circulation rate. And the BFB, you have to control the not circulation, the mixing of the bed, the sand, and maybe make it bubbling and have a very properly freeboard. So it's very complicated. So we call it direct. And for the dual fluidized bed, we call it indirect gasification, because you separate the combustion and gasification. And what is the advantage for indirect? For example, there's a nitrogen-free gas without ASU. If you want to use nitrogen to do the gasification in the direct, you need air separation unit, and it's expensive. And in the indirect, you don't need to use, you just use the steam that can do it. And incomplete carbon conversion, and the indirect have complete carbon conversion. And the high temperature and high steam, small fuel size, and large resins are need for acceptable conversion, which means you need to go to the higher temperature, then you can have a higher carbon conversion. But if you go to the higher temperature, the carbon will be complete burned too, not go to the fuel. They will go to the CO2, not stop into the CO, because CO have heating value, but CO2 doesn't have. So it's very tricky. If you have higher temperature, you only have a CO2. But if you don't have higher temperature, the conversion rate is very low. So this is a dilemma. But the indirect gasification, they fix it. You can have a higher temperature, combustion temperature, and a lower gasification temperature. You separate them, and then you can have a higher efficiency. So that's easy. I will tell you the detail more later. So we will come back around like 1. Okay. So okay, see you guys later.